What if I could told you that one leadership lesson could save a company millions? And what if the biggest hurdle to success isn't skill, but is self-doubt? Welcome to Empower Her Voices. I'm your host Faiza, and today we are diving into the journey of a woman who has transformed organizations, built high impact leaders, and graced the TEDx stage with wisdom that inspires action. My guest, Courtney Ramsey, is a keynote speaker, leadership expert, and a true force when it comes to talent development. With over 2 decades of experience in talent development, she has helped organizations build high impact leaders and reduce turnover, and most importantly, enhance employee engagement. Thank you so much, Courtney. It's a pleasure to have you on Empower Her Voices, and we really appreciate that you've accepted the invitation.
My pleasure, Faiza. Thank you for having me.
That's great. That's great. So, Courtney, before that, we're going to start. So, your journey like spans over 2 decades in leadership development, particularly. So, was there a defining moment in your life that actually made you realize, oh, okay, this is my true calling, or this is where I belong to, or I have to take this path?
Sort of, yes. I would say I've always had a passion for public speaking, which I think is really strange for a lot of people. This is really scary for most people. But I started public speaking back in high school when I was here in the States, doing things like cross-examination, debate, and
Wow.
impromptu
Okay.
speaking at tournaments on weekends when I was like in high school. So I was kind of a dork.
Wow.
I was not the sporty girl. I was doing speech and drama competitions,
Okay.
but I never thought that would be a career choice for me. But later on, when I was getting my
Hmm.
MBA, I had just given a group presentation and I was going back to sit down in my seat. And a friend of mine walked up and he was like, "You're really good at this." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're
Wow.
really good at speaking and you're really good at explaining
Hmm.
things. You should really think about being a corporate trainer after this." And I had
Wow.
never thought about that. I never thought about being in a speaking role as part of my job. And I didn't pursue it right away, but it found its way to me. And as soon as I got into that role, I realized it truly was a fit for me and I loved it.
Oh, wow. So it's like, you're lucky enough to actually uh, kind of realize your own passion since when you were in your high school. That's also something where otherwise people took years and years to actually understand what actually their true calling is. So this is something great. So while this is going through your profile and everything, the most inspiring bit, obviously there were a couple of other things that when it comes to leadership training, you have helped companies and helped them save millions and help them build capacity for their, overall employee workforce. So, what's that one unconventional lesson, particularly about leadership, that you have learned actually the hard way? Or I would rather say that it was kind of a realization point when you were
Mhm.
doing all this.
You know, gosh, that's a good one. I think one of the things I had to learn the hard way, especially around leadership, is that confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence comes because of action and through action. And by that, I mean that as a trainer and someone who is a lifetime learner, like I could go to a conference, I could read a book, I could listen to a TED talk. It makes my heart happy. I like to accumulate knowledge, right? But you can have all the knowledge in your head, but until you do it and you put it into play, you don't get the
Yeah.
confidence and the true wisdom that comes with it. So that is something I had to learn the hard way, especially because I went from being a leadership development trainer to leading a team of trainers. And you would think of all people, I would be someone who would know how to be a leader because I've been teaching people to do it, but I failed
Yes.
miserably because I knew it, but I hadn't done it. And those are two very different things. And I definitely had to learn that the hard way. Mhm.
Great, great. And this is also like really inspiring as well in a way that when we are doing something in a way that we're teaching something, about a certain thing, and then when we are exactly doing it for our own way, then that is the point where we think, oh, okay, so this is how we are going to reciprocate actually what we are exactly saying. So that's like very well said. So, Courtney, talking about the professional life, particularly about the corporate sector, many like there are professionals out there who kind of, they encounter imposter syndrome, right? And have you like ever felt or faced self-doubt in your career now by keeping in view where Courtney is today, shaping millions and millions of professionals out there and helping organizations. So was there like a phase for you when it comes to this thing?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I would love to say that imposter syndrome eventually goes away. In my opinion, though, it does not. It's something I still deal with every day. I even had to deal with it most recently a couple of weeks ago when I was the fourth speaker in a lineup of keynote speakers at a conference. I was the last one to go. And I got to see all three of the speakers ahead of me speak in their full out capacity. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to follow all three of these people. They were all amazing. I started really getting in my head and getting really intimidated by it. But then I just had to really make myself break out of it. So the way I do that is I try to pause the panic, first of all, and I really think about, okay, what's the story I'm telling myself right now? And is that an absolutely true story? Because our brains like to start going down a rabbit hole. And most of the time, we're blowing things up and we're making things much bigger and worse than they really are. So I try to pause the panic. And then I try to think back on things and times where I've been successful before. So times where I got really great feedback from my speaking and my engagements and my keynotes, or times where someone came up to me and told me about how I helped them in some way. And then I remember that I have to do it anyway, and I have to be authentic to me. Because the one thing I've noticed more than anything is if you try to be someone else because you're scared that you're being an imposter, right? That you don't have what it takes. You try to be someone else, that's the fastest way to failure and disappointment. So I figured if I was going to fail, and if I was going to get bad feedback, I better do it as me, right? and luckily it went well. But you really do have to remind yourself often that everyone feels like this. It's not unusual, but you have to do it anyway.
Great. So it's a new perspective that you've shared. It's actually a learning for me as well that you said it's not something that is being encountered once, twice, thrice, or a couple of times. It's something that you'll encounter, in a continuous cycle. For example, might be today or some after when you're going to face something. So it's like a continuous process, right? And what I've understood right now that you said that if we are going to be someone else, or if we try to be someone else, then it is going to be heavy on ourselves. So we need to accept our or embrace our individuality. Is that so to overcome this bit?
Yeah. Yeah. I really think accepting yourself as you are and realizing that you were asked to do this thing for a reason. Someone believed in you somewhere. Someone believes that you have what it takes. So come at it through your own authenticity. I can't say the word today. Authenticity. You really have to make sure that you're authentically being yourself. And again, if it doesn't work out, at least you will know that it truly wasn't a fit. But when you're trying to be someone else, it's almost guaranteed to fail.
True, true. And then you'll not even feel comfortable in that way.
No.
When your own self will be comfortable, fine, this is how I am, and this is how I speak, and this is my style. So that's a great advice as well, even for the women and young girls out there, as Courtney has said that, the more you're going to embrace your individuality and authenticity, that's who you are, you'll be at peace in a way that you'll be easy in your own skin rather than becoming someone else. So you can get inspiration, you can get inspired, but at the end of the day, just be yourself. And this is how, like as she has said, that this is how you can encounter or you can actually overcome the imposter syndrome. So, Courtney, as you are the one who's inspiring people around you in organizations, building capacity, building leaders. So, who are your mentors? Like, who is your inspiration? And because whenever it's about that someone has achieved certain milestones, there's always someone in your life from whom you have learned or from whom you have been inspired. So, is there anyone in your life like this?
You know, there's always those people you look up to now. Like I love seeing certain people online who are just amazing at what they do. And they always seem to drop those like amazing truth bombs that just stick with you. And you're like, why did I never think of it that way? Right. But so funny. I think some of the people that have inspired me the most and have really changed the way I look at life or leadership, especially. I had a boss back when I worked at JC Penney, and she was reviewing me for my annual performance. So I'd only been with her about 9 months, and I was in a recruiting position, and I was doing really, really well. Like I was making all the numbers and I was filling the positions that I
Okay.
needed to fill. But she was like, you know
Hmm.
what? It's interesting because you're doing great at your job. But I asked your
Hmm.
coworkers what they thought about you and your performance. And they all had something very similar to say. They said, you seem nice enough and you seem like a really hard worker, but they don't know you very much because you're always at your desk. You don't really get out much.
Okay.
You come in, you do your work,
Hmm.
you go home, and no one seems to know you personally. And she's like, just so you know, that's okay for now. But if you ever want to be a
Yeah.
leader of people, you're going to have to work on building more relationships because the relationships are what makes leaders successful or unsuccessful because you can't be influential if you don't know people and if they don't know you. And that was like, oh my
Oh,
gosh. Wow. I never really
okay.
thought of it that way. I was just doing the work and getting the results because
Hmm.
that's always what
Yes.
people had rewarded me for. Like, oh, good, you checked the box, you're doing all the things. But
True.
I was undervaluing relationships. And that really had changed my entire perspective. So I credit her for shedding that light for me.
So that's really interesting that, okay, so you said that there was tick in the box when it comes to your performance and everything. So this is like as you have linked it to the leadership trait that if someone wish to, or if a girl or the woman out there who's in the professional career, they wish to become a leader, they need to have people skills or they need to connect with them on personal level. So the importance of this bit is actually like highly, relative to what a leadership is going to be.
Yes, yes. So it's just when you start to get promoted to a leader of a team, it's just not about your technical skills and your experiences and the results you get. It is so much more about how you impact other people and what they think about you, what they feel about you, because that's how you motivate people. That's how you get them to get the results you need to get and drive as a team. If you don't have those relationships, you're going to have a really hard time doing those things.
And I totally agree with you. And to actually achieve this bit, how do you think like interpersonal skills is something really important when it comes to people building or people skills, or we would rather say it's like the non-verbal communication as
Right.
compared to the verbal communication. So that how do you see the importance of both these things in having a strong people skill?
Mm. It's funny, like you said, the nonverbal can be just as important as the words you're saying, right? Because even like right now, I could be like, "Oh, I'm really happy to be here." And I'm saying the right words, but if nothing is matching that message, right? People can see right through that. And it goes back to the authenticity. People know when you're not
Yes.
genuine and they know when you're not
Hmm.
being authentic. So to your
True.
point, I think you have to really remember that it's everything. People are always watching you. They're watching your face, they're watching your body language, they're watching your actions. And all those
True.
things are rolling up into what people feel about you and what they believe about you, which goes back to how they have a relationship with you or how they don't.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then they can obviously relate back to it. So how beautiful this whole term leadership is, because if a leader is actually a true leader, how inspiring he or she is going to be, because he or she is going to impact the entire community around them.
Mm.
That's like I guess the most powerful way. So Courtney, as this this podcast or this series is all about like inspiring the young girls or the women out there who
Mhm.
wish to have a professional life, who wish to have their careers, but still somehow, somewhere, they have those barriers, may it be through mindset, may it be because of the family structure, or because of the society around them. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is that one piece of advice that you would like to give them? Maybe any sector, education, health, IT. So, if they want to become a leader, right, you have already mentioned that people skill is important. How do they come out of that imposter syndrome? You have mentioned that they need to be their own self. So, what things they need to keep in mind to train or to build their own capacity to become a leader in their certain positions or sectors?
Mm. So I think if I had to give someone advice to work towards becoming a leader, the relationship thing is definitely number one. So I would say not necessarily stop developing your technical skills, but start really putting an equal emphasis on developing relationships and your network of people
Right.
who support you and that you support. That's probably the biggest one, to really work on relationships. The second thing I would tell people is perfectionism is a trap, and it will hold you back and it will suffocate you, basically. So if you are one of those people who has really high standards, like I do, especially high standards of yourself, remember that perfectionism is going to hold you back, and you have to start putting yourself out there even when it's not perfect. And that might look like raising your hand in a meeting and stating something out loud that you're thinking of. It might look like giving someone some feedback that's more critical and difficult to deliver. It could be going to a networking event and walking up to someone you don't even know and shaking their hand or getting to know them, but you're never going to feel
Mm,
ready. And you're never going to feel like it's probably to the standard that you have in your head. You have to do it
yeah.
anyway.
Hmm. Yes, that's something really great. I'm sure that the women out there, if you are going to even pick one bit of it, which Courtney has just shared, that the technical skills are equally important, but you need to give equal importance to people building or to the relations that you're going to have with the people around you. If you're a teacher, a principal, an IT manager, or somewhere in the healthcare sector, these bits which Courtney has shared, trust me, it's very important to have those. Why? Because Courtney has spent more than 2 decades around capacity building and creating those leaders. So she knows the gist out of it, what is exactly important. And the reason of having this series is actually to celebrate the achievement of accomplished leaders like Courtney. Why? Because if she can do it and she's there after spending 2 decades working hard, creating that impact, and now you can actually see that the energy and the positivity oozing out from her is the conviction that she has. So if she can do it, trust me, you can also do it. But then you need to have clarity. As Courtney has said that it's about embracing your authenticity and then the clarity for the work that you have. It's very important to, she said that professionalism is there, but then you need to make sure that the perfection myth or the bit should not, take you or hold you back. So, Courtney, thank you so much. The wisdom that you have shared, I'm sure it will be really helpful for the audience out there. And we really appreciate the way you're creating impact in the community, because it's always about creating that ripple effect, which you are creating. And we wish you all the best for the future as well. And before that, we wrap up. I really wanted to ask that if you could go back
Mm-hmm.
and give yourself when you just stepped into the professional career. So if the Courtney today can give advice to the Courtney who stepped into the professional career 2, 3 decades ago, so what would it be?
I would remind myself, kind of similar to what we just talked about, but I'd remind myself that you're never going to feel ready. I have extremely high standards. I think I have to think about everything 1,000 times before I actually do it, before I put it out in the world. And you're never, for someone like me anyway, you're never going to wake up
Hmm.
one day and feel ready. You have to quit hitting that snooze button and do it anyway, because the more you do it, the more confidence and wisdom you're going to gain from it. Failure is not fatal. It's okay to fail, because when you fail, it means you're trying something new and you're growing and you're learning from it. So I would tell myself to keep moving, quit hitting that snooze button, and do it anyway, despite the fact I don't feel ready.
Wow, great. Do it anyway. That's the strongest bit that you have said. Just don't wait for perfection. Do it the way you want to do it, even if you are going to fail. As she has said, it means that you are trying. So thank you so much, Courtney, and thank you for the audience watching this episode. And I'm sure that if you are going to start from today even and not going to hold yourself back, the continuous cycle of this movement is going to lead you somewhere, and that is going to be impactful. So thank you so much. See you again with another episode. Till that time, keep on empowerment. Thank you.